That quiet evening, when the orange sun was saying goodbye to the sky, Amara watched in horror as her mother-in-law, Mama Kemi, poured something dark and deadly into her glass of palm wine. The liquid disappeared like a secret hiding in the shadows. But Amara saw everything from where she stood behind the kitchen door. Her heart stopped beating for a moment, like time had frozen. The glass sat there on the dinner table, waiting like a trap set for a mouse. Mama Kemi smiled a wicked smile and called out sweetly, "Amara, come, let us have our family dinner. Your husband is home." Amara's hands began to shake like leaves in a terrible storm. Tonight was supposed to be a happy night. Tonight, Tunde had come home from the city to be with his family. But tonight, Mama Kemi had decided it would be Amara's last night on earth. As Amara walked slowly toward the dinner table, her mind raced like a bird trying to escape from a cage. She had to think fast. She had to be smart. Because in the next few minutes, she would either save her own life or drink the poison that would end everything forever. Amara was a 25-year-old woman with skin as smooth as chocolate and eyes that sparkled like stars in the night sky. She grew up in a small township where the houses were close together and everyone knew everyone's business. Her parents were simple people who sold vegetables at the local market. They had worked very hard to send Amara to school, even though they did not have much money. Amara was very smart in school. She could read and write better than most people in her township. She had dreams of becoming a teacher and helping other children learn. But when she married Tunde, Mama Kemi's only son, her dreams seemed to fly away like birds in the sky. Tunde was a good man with a kind heart. He loved Amara very much and always tried to protect her from his mother's mean words. But Tunde worked far away in the city, driving a taxi to make money for the family. He only came home once a month, leaving Amara alone with Mama Kemi most of the time. Mama Kemi was a woman who ruled her house like a queen rules her kingdom. She was tall and strong, with grey hair that she tied in a tight bun. Her voice was loud like thunder, and her eyes could make anyone feel small. She had never liked Amara from the day Tunde brought her home. Mama Kemi wanted her son to marry a rich girl from the city, not a poor girl from the township. Life in the township moved slowly like honey flowing from a jar. In the mornings, you could hear roosters calling the sun to wake up. Children would run to school with their books tied with string, their feet making dust clouds on the dirt roads. Women would gather at the water pump, talking and laughing while they filled their containers. Amara tried her best to fit into this life. She would wake up very early, before the sun painted the sky orange and pink. She would sweep the small yard with a broom made of twigs, making sure every leaf was gone. The compound had 3 small rooms, one for sleeping, one for cooking, and one for sitting. The walls were painted blue, but the paint was old and falling off like skin after sunburn. Every morning, Amara would walk to the market to buy food for the day. The market was full of colors, sounds, and smells. Women sat behind piles of tomatoes as red as blood, onions as white as clouds, and peppers as green as grass. They would call out to customers in loud voices, "Fresh tomatoes, sweet onions, buy from me." The smell of roasted corn and fried plantains would make your mouth water like a river. But even on these peaceful days, Mama Kemi would find something wrong with everything Amara did. If Amara bought red tomatoes, Mama Kemi would say she should have bought green ones. If Amara cooked the food soft, Mama Kemi would say it should be harder. If Amara cleaned the house in the morning, Mama Kemi would say she should have done it at night. As months passed like seasons changing, Mama Kemi's treatment of Amara got worse like a storm getting stronger. She would make Amara do all the work in the house while she sat under the big mango tree in the yard, fanning herself with a newspaper. "Amara," Mama Kemi would shout from her chair. "The floor is dirty. Clean it again." Even when the floor was so clean you could see your face in it, Mama Kemi would find dust somewhere. She would run her finger along the walls, looking for dirt that was not there. The other women in the township began to notice how sad Amara looked. Her friend Bisi, who lived in the house next door, would see Amara crying while she washed clothes by hand in a big metal basin. "Why do you let that woman treat you like this?" Bisi would ask, her voice soft like a mother talking to a hurt child. Amara would wipe her tears with the back of her hand and say, "She is my husband's mother. I must respect her. But inside her heart, Amara felt like a bird locked in a cage. She missed her own mother, who had always been kind and loving. She missed her father, who would tell her funny stories that made her laugh until her stomach hurt. Most of all, she missed feeling happy. When Tunde came home from the city, the house would change like day changing to night. Mama Kemi would smile and cook his favorite foods. She would speak in a sweet voice like honey and pretend to be the kindest mother in the world. My dear son, she would say, hugging Tunde tight. I have missed you so much. Amara and I have been taking good care of each other. Tunde would look at his wife and mother with happy eyes. He could not see the pain in Amara's heart because Mama Kemi was very good at hiding her true self when he was around. During these visits, Amara would try to tell Tunde about how his mother treated her. But she would speak in whispers, afraid that Mama Kemi might hear. Your mother is very hard on me, Amara would say when they were alone in their small room at night. Tunde would hold her hand gently and say, my mother is old and set in her ways. She will learn to love you. Just be patient. But patience was becoming harder for Amara to find, like trying to catch water with your bare hands. One hot afternoon, when the sun was burning like fire in the sky, Amara was washing dishes outside the house. The water in the plastic basin was dirty and soapy. Her hands were red and sore from scrubbing pots all morning. Mama Kemi was sitting with her friend, Mama Shade, under the mango tree. They thought Amara could not hear them, but their voices carried in the wind like leaves floating in the air. That girl is no good for my son, Mama Kemi was saying. Her voice was full of anger like a pot boiling over. She cannot cook properly, she cannot clean properly, and worst of all, she has not given me a grandchild yet. Mama Shade nodded her head like a lizard moving up and down. What will you do about it? Mama Kemi's voice became quiet like a snake moving through grass. I have a plan. There is a woman in the next township who makes special medicines. She will help me get rid of this problem. Amara's hands stopped moving. The plate she was washing slipped back into the water with a splash. Her heart started beating fast like a drum at a festival. What kind of special medicine was Mama Kemi talking about? That night, Amara could not sleep. She lay on the thin mattress next to Tunde, listening to him breathe peacefully. Outside, she could hear night sounds, crickets singing their songs, dogs barking in the distance, and the wind making the mango trees' leaves dance. She thought about Mama Kemi's words over and over, like a song stuck in her head. What did she mean by get rid of this problem? Was she talking about making Amara sick? Or worse? The next morning, Mama Kemi announced that she was going to visit her sister in the next township. This was strange because Mama Kemi never visited anyone. She always said that people should come to her house, not the other way around. I will be back before evening, Mama Kemi said, tying her head wrap tight around her head. She wore her best dress, the one with blue flowers on it that she only wore to church. After Mama Kemi left, Amara felt curious like a cat seeing something new. She decided to follow her mother-in-law to see where she was really going. Amara put on her old dress and head wrap and walked carefully behind Mama Kemi, staying far enough away so she would not be seen. The path to the next township was dusty and long. It went through tall grass that whispered secrets in the wind. Amara had to be very careful not to step on snakes or thorns that could hurt her feet through her old shoes. She watched as Mama Kemi walked past the houses in the next township and stopped at a small hut at the very end of the village. The hut was different from other houses. It was painted black and had strange things hanging from the roof, dried animals, old bottles, and pieces of cloth that moved in the wind like ghosts dancing. An old woman came out of the hut. She was so old that her back was bent like a question mark. Her hair was white like cotton, and her eyes were cloudy like water with milk in it. She wore many necklaces made of bones and beads that clicked together when she moved. Amara hid behind a big tree and watched as Mama Kemi talked to the old woman. She could not hear their words, but she could see Mama Kemi giving the old woman money. The old woman went back into her hut and came out with a small bottle. The bottle was dark and looked dangerous, like it contained something that should never see the light of day. Mama Kemi took the bottle and hid it in her bag. She looked around carefully to make sure no one was watching, then started walking back home. Amora's heart was beating so fast she thought it might jump out of her chest. She ran home through a different path, making sure to get there before Mama Kemi. When her mother-in-law returned, Amara was sitting quietly in the kitchen, pretending to clean rice. "How was your sister?" Amara asked, trying to keep her voice normal. Mama Kemi's eyes flashed like lightning. "She was fine. Mind your own business." That night, Amara could not eat her dinner. Her stomach felt tight like a rope tied in knots. She kept thinking about the dark bottle and what it might contain. Over the next few days, Amara watched Mama Kemi very carefully like a hawk watching a mouse. She noticed that her mother-in-law kept touching her bag, as if checking that something was still there. One morning, while Mama Kemi was taking a bath behind the house, Amara quietly looked in her bag. Her hands were shaking like leaves in a storm as she searched through Mama Kemi's things. At the bottom of the bag, wrapped in an old cloth, she found the dark bottle. The bottle was small but heavy. It had no label, but it smelled terrible, like rotten eggs mixed with dead fish. Just holding it made Amara feel sick. She quickly wrapped it back up and put it exactly where she found it. Amara now knew for sure that Mama Kemi was planning to poison her. The knowledge sat in her heart like a heavy stone. She thought about running away, but where could she go? She thought about telling Tunde, but he was far away in the city and would not believe that his own mother could do such a terrible thing. 2 weeks later, Tunde came home for his monthly visit. Mama Kemi was happier than Amara had ever seen her. She hummed songs while she cooked and smiled like she had won a big prize. "We must have a special family dinner tonight," Mama Kemi announced. "I will cook all of Tunde's favorite foods." Amara watched as Mama Kemi prepared the food. She made jollof rice with chicken, fried plantains as sweet as honey, and a soup with so many spices it made your nose tickle. The whole house smelled like a feast for kings. But Amara noticed something else. When Mama Kemi thought no one was looking, she took the dark bottle from her bag and poured a few drops into a glass of palm wine. The liquid disappeared into the wine like a secret hiding in the shadows. Mama Kemi set the glass of palm wine at Amara's place at the table. Amara's mouth went dry like sand in the desert. This was it. This was the moment Mama Kemi had been planning. She wanted to poison Amara during the family dinner, with Tunde right there as a witness. She would probably say that Amara had gotten sick from bad food or something else. No one would ever suspect that Mama Kemi had poisoned her own daughter-in-law. But Amara was not going to let this happen. An idea began to form in her mind like a plan taking shape. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and purple like a beautiful cloth, the family sat down for dinner. The small table was covered with a white cloth that Amara had washed and ironed carefully. Candles flickered in the gentle evening breeze, making shadows dance on the walls. Tunde sat at the head of the table, looking handsome in his clean shirt. He was tired from his long journey home, but his eyes were bright with happiness at being with his family. "This looks wonderful, Mother," Tunde said, smiling at Mama Kemi. "You have outdone yourself." Mama Kemi beamed with pride like a peacock showing its feathers. "Only the best for my dear son," she said. Her eyes quickly looked at Amara's glass of palm wine, and a small smile crossed her lips like a snake sliding through grass. "Let us give thanks for this food and for our family," Tunde said, bowing his head. While Tunde's head was bowed and his eyes were closed, Amara acted quickly like lightning striking the ground. She switched her glass of palm wine with the one that was sitting in front of Papa Kemi, Mama Kemi's husband and Tunde's father. Papa Kemi was a quiet man who rarely spoke during meals. He was older than Mama Kemi, with grey hair and gentle eyes. He had always been kind to Amara, sometimes even defending her when Mama Kemi was being particularly mean. The switch happened so fast that no one noticed. Amara's heart was beating like drums at a festival, but she kept her face calm like a still lake. "Amen." Tunde finished his prayer and looked up with a smile. "Let us drink to our family," Mama Kemi said, raising her own glass of palm wine. Her eyes were fixed on Amara like a cat watching a mouse. Everyone picked up their glasses. Amara held her breath as Papa Kemi lifted the poisoned glass to his lips. She felt terrible about what might happen to him, but she had to save herself. But just as Papa Kemi was about to drink, something unexpected happened. A neighbor's child came running into the compound, crying loudly like a siren. "Help! Help!" the child screamed. "My baby brother has fallen into the well." Everyone jumped up from the table immediately. In the township, when someone was in trouble, everyone helped like one big family. "We must go quickly," Tunde said, running toward the door. In all the confusion and rushing around, Papa Kemi put down his glass without drinking from it. The family ran out of the house to help with the emergency, leaving all the food and drinks on the table. At the neighbor's house, they found that the baby had not actually fallen into the well. He had only dropped his toy into the water and was crying because he could not get it back. The men used a long stick with a hook to fish out the toy, and soon the baby was happy again. But the emergency had taken more than an hour. When the family returned home, it was dark outside. The candles on the table had burned down to small stubs, and the food was cold. "We can heat up the food," Mama Kemi said, but she looked worried. She kept looking at the glasses on the table, probably wondering if her poison was still there. "I am too tired to eat more," Tunde said, yawning like a lion. "Let us just go to bed. We can have the rest tomorrow." Papa Kemi agreed. He was an old man and got tired easily. Without thinking, he picked up his glass of palm wine, the one that had been meant for Amara, and drank it all in one gulp. "Ah, that was good," he said with a satisfied smile. Nothing like palm wine to end the day. Amara watched in horror as Papa Kemi drank the poisoned wine. She wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The poison was now inside his body like a dangerous secret that could not be taken back. Mama Kemi's face went white like chalk. She had seen her husband drink from what she thought was his own glass, not knowing that Amara had switched them. But she could not say anything without revealing her evil plan. That night, Amara could not sleep at all. She lay in bed next to Tunde, listening to every sound in the house. She was waiting to hear Papa Kemi get sick, or worse. She felt guilty like she had done something terrible, even though she was only trying to save herself. In the next room, she could hear Mama Kemi moving around restlessly. Her mother-in-law was probably also waiting to see what would happen, but for very different reasons. The night seemed to last forever, like time had stopped moving. Amara heard every cricket singing, every dog barking, every sound the old house made as it settled in the darkness. But as the hours passed, nothing happened. Papa Kemi slept peacefully, breathing normally. He did not get sick. He did not call out in pain. He just slept like any other night. When the sun rose like a golden ball in the sky, Papa Kemi woke up feeling fine. He got out of bed, stretched his arms like he was trying to touch the clouds, and went outside to wash his face with water from the big container in the yard. "Good morning, everyone," he called out cheerfully. His voice was strong and happy. Mama Kemi came out of her room looking confused and worried. She stared at her husband like she was seeing a ghost. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked him, her voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. "I feel wonderful," Papa Kemi replied with a big smile. "I slept like a baby. That palm wine last night was delicious." Amara was also confused. Why had the poison not worked? Was it not really poison after all? Or had something else happened? The answer came when Bisi, the neighbor woman, came to visit after breakfast. "Did you hear about Amara Dunny?" Bisi asked excitedly. Amara Dunny was the old woman in the black hut who had given Mama Kemi the bottle. "What about her?" Mama Kemi asked, trying to sound casual. "She was arrested yesterday evening," Bisi said with wide eyes. "The police found out she was selling fake medicines to people. All her bottles were just colored water and herbs that do nothing. She was cheating people out of their money." Amara felt like a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The poison had not been poison at all. It was just colored water. Papa Kemi was safe, and so was she. But Mama Kemi looked like she had been struck by lightning. She had paid good money for what she thought was poison, only to find out she had been cheated. That afternoon, when Tunde had gone to visit friends in the township, Amara decided it was time to confront Mama Kemi. She could not continue living in fear and pretending that nothing had happened. "Mama Kemi," Amara said, standing in the doorway of the kitchen. Her voice was steady like a rock, even though her heart was beating fast. "What do you want?" Mama Kemi snapped, not looking up from the yam she was peeling. "I know what you tried to do to me," Amara said quietly. The knife in Mama Kemi's hand stopped moving. She looked up at Amara with eyes like fire. "I don't know what you are talking about," Mama Kemi said, but her voice was not as strong as usual. "I saw you go to the old woman's hut. I saw you buy the bottle. I saw you put it in my palm wine," Amara said. Each word came out clear and strong like drops of rain hitting the ground. Mama Kemi's face changed like clouds covering the sun. First she looked angry, then surprised, then scared. "You switched the glasses," Mama Kemi whispered, more to herself than to Amara. "Yes, I did," Amara said. "But the joke is on both of us. The poison was fake. You were cheated, just like all the other people who trusted that woman." For a long moment, the two women stared at each other like two animals deciding whether to fight or run away. Then, something unexpected happened. Mama Kemi began to cry. Not angry tears, but sad tears that came from deep inside her heart like water from a deep well. "I was so afraid," Mama Kemi said through her tears. Her proud shoulders shook like leaves in a storm. Amara was shocked. She had never seen her mother-in-law cry before. She had always seemed so strong and mean, like nothing could hurt her. "Afraid of what?" Amara asked, her anger beginning to soften like ice melting in the sun. "Afraid of losing my son," Mama Kemi said. "Tunde is all I have. His father is old and will not live forever. Tunde is my only child, my only hope for the future." She wiped her eyes with the corner of her wrapper and continued speaking, her voice broken like a cracked pot. "When Tunde brought you home, I saw how much he loved you. I saw how happy you made him. I was afraid that he would love you more than me, that he would forget about his old mother." Amara felt her own eyes fill with tears. She had never thought about how Mama Kemi might be feeling scared too. "I thought that if you were gone, Tunde would stay with me forever," Mama Kemi continued. "But I was wrong. I was so very wrong." The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of both women crying softly. "I never wanted to take Tunde away from you," Amara said gently. "I just wanted to be part of the family. I wanted us to love each other like a real mother and daughter." Mama Kemi looked up at Amara with surprise, like she was seeing her for the first time. You wanted me to be like your mother?" she asked. "Yes," Amara said. "My own mother is far away. I was hoping you could be like a mother to me here. But instead, you made me feel like an enemy." From that day forward, things began to change in the small house like seasons changing from dry to rainy. It was not easy at first. Mama Kemi had been mean for so long that being kind felt strange to her, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. But slowly, like a flower growing toward the sun, she began to treat Amara better. Instead of shouting about burned rice, she would show Amara how to cook it perfectly. Instead of complaining about the cleaning, she would work alongside Amara, teaching her the best ways to keep a house. "My mother taught me this way of folding clothes," Mama Kemi would say, showing Amara how to make neat piles that did not fall over. "My mother taught me to add a little palm oil to the beans while they cook," Amara would reply, sharing her own knowledge. The other women in the township began to notice the change. They saw Mama Kemi and Amara walking to the market together, talking and sometimes even laughing. They saw them sitting under the mango tree in the evenings, sharing stories and jokes. "What happened to those two?" Mama Shade asked Bisi one day. "They used to fight like cats and dogs. Maybe they finally learned that family should stick together," Bisi replied wisely. When Tunde came home for his next monthly visit, he could not believe his eyes. Instead of finding a sad wife and an angry mother, he found two women working together in the kitchen, singing old songs while they cooked. "What has happened here?" he asked, looking back and forth between his wife and his mother like he was watching a tennis match. "We have become friends," Amara said with a smile as bright as the morning sun. "Friends?" Tunde repeated, still confused. "Better than friends," Mama Kemi said, putting her arm around Amara's shoulders. "We have become family. Real family." Tunde was so happy he danced around the small kitchen, making both women laugh until their stomachs hurt. "This is the best thing that could have happened," he said, hugging both of them at the same time. "Now I don't have to worry about leaving you two alone together." "You never have to worry about that again," Mama Kemi promised, and she meant it with all her heart. As months passed like pages turning in a book, the house became filled with happiness instead of anger. Mama Kemi taught Amara all the family recipes that had been passed down from grandmother to granddaughter for many generations. "This is how we make the pepper soup that your children will love," Mama Kemi would say, stirring the pot with care. "When we have children, you mean," Amara would correct her gently. "When we have children," Mama Kemi would agree with a smile. They worked together in the small garden behind the house, growing tomatoes, peppers, and onions. They would wake up early to water the plants before the sun got too hot, talking about their dreams and hopes for the future. "I always wanted to have a daughter," Mama Kemi told Amara one morning as they pulled weeds from between the tomato plants. "And I always wanted to have a mother who would teach me things," Amara replied. "Well, now we have each other," Mama Kemi said, and both women smiled like the sun was shining directly on their hearts. The lesson learned. One evening, as they sat under the mango tree watching the sun set like a painting in the sky, Mama Kemi spoke about the terrible thing she had almost done. "I am so ashamed of myself," she said quietly. "I nearly destroyed our family because of my own fear and jealousy." "But you didn't," Amara reminded her. "And now we know better. We know that love is not like food that gets smaller when you share it. Love grows bigger when more people have it." Papa Kemi, who had been listening from his chair nearby, nodded his old head wisely. "The young woman speaks the truth," he said. "I have loved my wife for 40 years, but when Tunde was born, my love did not become smaller. It became bigger. And when you came, Amara, it became even bigger still. Family is like a tree," Mama Kemi added thoughtfully. "The more branches it has, the stronger it becomes." A year later, during the rainy season when the air smelled fresh and clean, Amara discovered she was going to have a baby. She felt nervous like a butterfly in her stomach, but also excited like a child on her birthday. She told Mama Kemi first, before even telling Tunde. "Mama Kemi," she said one morning as they prepared breakfast together. "I have some news." "What is it, my daughter?" Mama Kemi asked. She had started calling Amara my daughter instead of just using her name. "I am going to have a baby," Amara whispered, touching her stomach gently. Mama Kemi dropped the wooden spoon she was holding. It clattered to the floor like rainfall on a tin roof. Then she grabbed Amara and hugged her so tight that Amara could barely breathe. "A grandchild," Mama Kemi shouted with joy. "I am going to be a grandmother." She danced around the small kitchen like a young girl at a festival, singing and clapping her hands. Her happiness was so big it filled the whole house like sunshine pouring through windows. When Tunde came home and heard the news, he was so excited he could not sit still. He kept walking back and forth in the small room, grinning like someone who had found treasure. "We must start preparing immediately," Mama Kemi announced. "I will teach you everything you need to know about caring for a baby." And she did. She showed Amara how to make soft clothes from old fabric, how to prepare special foods for new mothers, and how to sing the lullabies that would help the baby sleep peacefully. When the baby was born, a beautiful little girl with eyes like her mother and a smile like her father, Mama Kemi cried tears of pure joy. She held her granddaughter in her arms like she was holding the most precious thing in the world. "She is perfect," Mama Kemi whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks like rain on windows. "She is absolutely perfect." They named the baby Folake, which means cared for with wealth, because she was so loved and treasured by everyone in the family. Mama Kemi became the most devoted grandmother anyone had ever seen. She would wake up in the middle of the night to help with the baby. She would carry Folake around the compound, showing her off to all the neighbors like she was displaying a crown jewel. "This is my granddaughter," she would say proudly to anyone who would listen. "Is she not the most beautiful baby you have ever seen?" The neighbors would smile and agree, because little Folake truly was a beautiful baby, but also because they were happy to see how much Mama Kemi had changed. Years passed like seasons changing, and the family grew stronger and happier with each day. Tunde was eventually able to find work closer to home, so he did not have to travel to the city anymore. Papa Kemi lived to see his granddaughter take her first steps and say her first words. Amara never told Tunde about what had happened that night at dinner, about the switched glasses and the fake poison. Some secrets were better left buried, like seeds that should never be allowed to grow. What mattered was not the past, but the love they had built together. Mama Kemi became known in the township as one of the kindest, most helpful women around. When new brides came to live with their mothers-in-law, she would visit them and share her wisdom. "Love your daughter-in-law like your own daughter," she would tell the older women. "She is not taking your son away from you. She is giving you more family to love." And to the young wives, she would say, "Be patient with your mother-in-law. She is not your enemy. She is just a woman who loves her son and is afraid of losing him. Show her that you want to be part of the family, not replace it." As little Folake grew into a smart and happy child, she loved to sit with her grandmother and listen to stories. Mama Kemi would tell her about the old days, about traditions and customs, and about the importance of family. "Grandmama," Folake would ask, "why do you and Mama love each other so much?" "My friend says her mother and grandmother always fight." Mama Kemi would smile and pull her granddaughter closer. "Because we learned that family is the most important thing in the world," she would say. "We learned that love is not something you fight for like a prize. Love is something you give freely, like water from a well that never runs dry." "Will you always love me, Grandmama?" Folake would ask. "Forever and always," Mama Kemi would promise. "Even when I am very old and you are all grown up, I will love you more than all the stars in the sky." And in that small house in the township, where 3 generations of women lived together in harmony, love had indeed conquered all the fear, jealousy, and misunderstanding that had once threatened to tear them apart. Did this story touch your heart like it touched mine? Can you imagine what would have happened if Amara had not been brave enough to switch those glasses? What if the poison had been real? Sometimes the smallest actions can change everything. If you enjoyed this tale of family, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more amazing African folktales that will make you laugh, cry, and think about life in new ways. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that families can heal, that love can grow, and that even the worst situations can turn into the most beautiful blessings. What did you think about Mama Kemi's change of heart? Have you ever had to deal with a difficult family member? Tell us your story in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, just like Amara and Mama Kemi learned, the best families are not perfect families. They are families that choose love over fear, understanding over anger, and forgiveness over grudges.